Okay. It looks like as if it is my own turn to give you an update about the situation of the Finnish sawmill industry. Last year was a good year. I think it was, for many mills, it was the best year after 2007. 2008 was a total disaster. So I hope this year is not going to be similar as 2008. Actually, I don't see anything in the air what would reflect to that. First, it's Valentine's Day. It's absolutely fantastic that you lovers have gathered together here. Sometimes in England, in the 18th century, lovers expressed their feelings by presenting flowers, offering confectionery or something like that. I'm open for gin tonic in the bar after the seminar, especially from my Valentine from 2017, Mr. Veli-Matti Junnikkala. This venue where we are at the moment, it's a very well-known and historical place. Quite dramatic moments took place here in 1918. You know, 2 years ago when I gave you the presentation about Finnish history, I told you that this was the headquarters of the red side of the Civil War. The picture on the left-hand side was taken in 1908 when the building was built, and the right-hand side shows you what the area looks like nowadays. And as in many big cities, well, Helsinki is not big, bigger cities, the center has become larger, and this area has also become very trendy. Real estate prices have gone up dramatically, and they are actually very close to the levels what we have seen only in the southern parts of the center. This was built to become the first stone-built labor union house, workers' house. And of course, for instance, I read a book where a sawmiller at that time said that the world has gone down. Now the labor people, they build stone houses in Helsinki. Where the hell is the world going to? On the right-hand side, you see a picture of a pub called Jututupa. Many of you have been there during previous year. And one gentleman organized his meetings there as well, Mr. Lenin, when he was planning how to proceed with the new order for the state east of us. But let's go to our business. We must remember that we are in great business, and sawn softwood and wood products, they are a solution, they are not a problem. There's a lot of talk about forestry nowadays and forest industries in Finland, and we are trying to figure out how much wood can we use. According to the strategy, the aim is to use 80 million cubic meters of roundwood per year. It's a good target, I think, but it means that we leave maybe 10 to 15 million cubic meters of wood to work as carbon sink every year. So the growth is much higher, and the technical annual allowance cut is much higher. So it may be that because of mitigating, because the politicians decide to mitigate the climate change, we will leave a lot of wood in forests, which in principle I think is good. The question is how much. And it's a tricky issue, and I think actually the Chinese government is struggling with a similar thing. They want to clean the environment in China, but that means decrease of GDP. We'll come back to that, I think, in Anna's presentation. Nevertheless, we need wood. And if we think about the wood, what the sawmills use, they use heavy-size wood, which has been growing for 80 to 120 years in Finnish forests, capturing and storing carbon. When the sawmills use the wood, the carbon will stay in the products. And all the residues will also be efficiently used, which doesn't take place in many of our competing countries. Responsible forestry is nowadays, it's something different than what it's been in Finland earlier. Issues related to biodiversity have become much more important. It's not only the economic value of the forests, it's also recreation, and it is also a question of endangered species and habitats. So I really believe that we in Finland, we are forerunners. We haven't done everything okay in the past. We have a lot to do in the future, but I think we have been on the right track always. And that's the reason why we have more forests than ever. We should emphasize more of these positive impacts of our industry when we sell our products to the end users. And we should encourage them to promote the good message what our business carries. Last year we produced 11.8 million cubic meters of wood, which is 100,000 cubic meters more than in 2017. The domestic market picked up slightly, but as Jan said, the construction industry looks like cooling. We'll see how it impacts on wooden construction. Exports of wood, timber, sawn softwood, decreased last year, mainly because of the collapse of exports to China. We exported the same volume of redwood as in 2017, but whitewood exports contracted by 14%. And because of that, the stocks ended up a bit high at the end of the year. They are not even close to record high, but nevertheless much higher than what we have seen during the 1.5 years. Trading has started actually more positively than what I thought. However, it takes a little bit time to get the standing stock moving, because it is to a large extent Chinese specification. Of course, the mills have changed their specifications in production, so the stock is probably not increasing. If we look at the Finnish economy, growth will probably slow down a little bit this year, as Jan said, due to challenges in exports. Nevertheless, the atmosphere here is relatively good, even though confidence indicators have deteriorated towards the end of last year. But consumption is still on a relatively good level. We were hit very severely by the financial crisis, and it has taken a long time to recover from that. I think the recovery is behind. Now the question is how to keep the current status in the coming year. On the right-hand side curve, you see construction permits in Finland, and the red line shows wooden construction. And actually the figure is lower than what I showed last year, because the Finnish statistics, the Bureau had some errors in their books, so it's been fixed. As you see, the wooden construction, if you look at it with positive eyes, you can see a small increase. Building of blocks of flats is very trendy in speeches, wooden blocks of flats, but only species. We still have very limited construction projects ongoing, and we'll see how the trend will realize, because construction in general will cool a little bit this year. If we look at exports, in this graph I have shown the exports to different markets. The blue column shows exports in 2017, and the orange column shows exports in 2018, and it's an estimate because the statistics give us figures only for end November figures. Of course, the obvious thing what you pay immediately attention on is that China has become the third, while it was by far the biggest market last year. There are a lot of reasons for this decline in China. I think Anna will touch this a little bit, and maybe Russ as well later. But if I look at it from the Finnish point of view, one reason is that we were not competitive. Russia increased supply to China a lot, and many main suppliers had to withdraw from the Chinese market. And actually a lot was cooking in the Chinese market as well. Imports of softwood remained at the same level as in 2017, but the structure of imports changed. However, we must pay attention that imports of logs, softwood logs, increased by 14% to China. So the consumption of wood actually, according to statistics, increased. Maybe some of the wood ended up in stock because the market also cooled down a little bit. There's many structural changes in the trade because of environmental reasons and so forth, but I will leave that to Anna and Russ. Egypt, as Pekka said, it was a bumpy road in Egypt last year, but the situation improved towards the end of the year. I would love to hear what was the reason for the situation in the autumn. Was it a financial problem? Was it a question of high stocks, or what's behind this development? Now it seems to be that Egypt is picking up very fast again. Japan, I think the biggest headache in Japan has been the glulam market. And of course the question is how will the glulam market or difficulties there affect our supply of lamina to the Japanese glulam industries. The Japanese have increased imports of European-made laminated beams, and it seems to be that production in Europe is actually more productive and profitable than the Japanese industry. One more thing that I would pay attention on is Algeria. Finally, Algeria picked up. As you know, in 2017 we suffered from trade barriers, what the Algerian government set for sawn timber and other products as well, but these barriers were lifted and volumes started to move again to Algeria. Currently it's, the situation is a bit challenging. It seems to be that the stocks are quite high, and the economic situation in Algeria is maybe not the best possible. Another issue is, if you look at the other countries, the last column on the right hand side, exports from Finland is fragmenting to smaller areas, and I think this is exactly what we should do, because our wood is nice quality, quite high quality, and our costs are very high. We cannot compete in the bulk markets, so that's the reason why we need to find small niches wherever we can get the value for the wood, the price for the wood, what is needed. Last year was the roundwood market was driven by pulp and paper industries, and funny enough, the heavy demand for pulpwood brought a lot of logs to the market, and the sawmillers, the most optimistic ones, expected the prices to go down, but I think it's the eighth miracle in the world that when the supply increased, the prices increased as well. But that's the world where we are living. The business is driven by pulp at the moment. Another miracle, maybe the ninth, is that pulpwood prices increased last year. And this was actually good news for us, not directly, but this resulted in higher prices in wood chips as well. So the wood chips price increases were actually quite dramatic. And this also helped us, the mills, to make a good result last year. However, if we look at the sawn timber price, this figure, the graph looks quite nice. Redwood and whitewood prices, they increased almost to the second highest level in this century. But unfortunately, the prices have declined since the statistics was published. So this is the end of November figure. The price development has been very varying depending on markets. Of course, China has been the biggest challenge, but obviously the price level there went so low that Finnish mills couldn't supply, and that's the reason for the stock accumulation. Now this price development, I think if I listen to our sales managers, they say that they are able to sell, and the goods are moving relatively well. I don't expect any boom in the prices, but I think the situation will stabilize this spring. Last year's conclusions, expected topical issues last year. So these was conclusions from last year, and I think some things went right, some things went wrong. Strong softwood market in North America. I think Russ can tell you a story of a twofold market. The beginning of the year was excellent and the end was quite bad. I think the prices went higher because of the increasing demand, and China was definitely one driver there. And of course, it's easy to write worries about the availability of roundwood. It is always there. What's going to happen next year? Jan explained how complicated the situation is, and if I may give you some ideas what could come. Climate change, definitely a topical issue. Lack of prosperity. Stock market will be strong, especially in the autumn. Founding of a new bank union. Several earthquakes, hurricanes, new discoveries in medicine, issues related to heart, circulatory system, stomach, and pancreas. Be careful. People will speak with animals. These are the predictions of Nostradamus for 2019. I completed it with some horoscopes as well. Nevertheless, this is how I see the situation. We will have elections in Finland, both parliamentary and EU Parliament elections, and I think the new government will be quite different from what it is now. And the Green movement the Green Party seems to be doing okay. They had big difficulties a few months ago, but now they are picking up very strongly, and I think they have good chances to win the elections. Let's see how it goes. But that will definitely have an impact in our industry. And we in Finland, in this business, we need to be awake, because we have a good message to carry to the Greens. Not many industries in Finland has such a nice story to tell. Climate change, this is more or less the same thing. Cooling of the global economy. When I was preparing the report, what you have in front of you, I paid attention that many countries, they are forecasting growth in the domestic market. Domestic demand will be busy, but external demand will go down. I don't know how the system works. If domestic market is good everywhere, why does export market be bad? I need to stop, sorry. The softwood market will probably be in relatively good balance this year, so I don't see too many dramatic moves unless China wakes up. What I'm worried about is we made a great year last year in relative terms, but we are still far behind our competitors. The Swedes and the North Americans, Russians, they beat us even though we did well. And the problem is that we face difficulties earlier than they do when the market turns. Risks, again, trade war, geopolitical risks, protectionism, complicated issue, and I don't even want to touch these issues any deeper. Ladies and gents, thanks very much for your attention. Thanks for not falling asleep. This was the Finnish outlook. Thank you.